the next President of the United States. Enough was enough, and I said, let's...
Hulk Hogan stood in the spotlight as one of the biggest wrestling legends the world has ever seen. His massive...
Trumpamania, run wild, brother! Let Trumpamania rule again!
Muscles, his signature red and yellow outfit, and that unforgettable mustache made him a hero to millions of fans. Kids looked up to him, adults cheered for him. He seemed unstoppable, both inside the ring and out. But when he passed away in July 2025, investigators began looking through his personal records, and what they discovered left everyone absolutely shocked. The man who once claimed he lost everything in his divorce and had nothing left was actually hiding a fortune. 2 enormous mansions in Clearwater, Florida, worth more than $11 million combined, were secretly registered under trusts and shell companies. Nobody knew they existed. Not his fans, not even some of his own family members. And that was just the beginning of the secrets that started pouring out. The story gets even darker when you realize that Hulk Hogan had been quietly fighting blood cancer for months before his death. His medical files showed he was suffering from a serious condition called chronic lymphocytic leukemia, which is a type of cancer that attacks the blood and bone marrow. He also had a dangerous heart problem that doctors call atrial fibrillation, which can cause strokes and heart failure. But while he was going through all of this, his wife was posting cheerful updates on social media, telling everyone that he was recovering nicely from surgery. She made it sound like everything was fine. Meanwhile, his body was giving up. The lies went so much deeper than anyone could have imagined, and the truth was only starting to come to light. Hulk Hogan was born with a very different name. His real name was Terry Gene Bollea, and he came into this world on August 11th, 1953, in Augusta, Georgia. When he was just a year and a half old, his family packed up and moved to Tampa, Florida. His father worked hard in construction, building things with his hands every single day. His mother was a dance teacher who loved the arts. They were a normal working-class family trying to make ends meet. But even back then, young Terry was different. He was bigger than other kids his age. He stood out. And somewhere deep inside, he had dreams that were much bigger than the small life his parents were living. People think Hulk Hogan got his incredible body from working out at the famous Muscle Beach in California, but that story is completely false. The real place where his transformation began was a small, sweaty gym in Tampa called Hector's Gym. That's where he started lifting heavy weights and building the massive frame that would later make him a superstar. But Hogan never corrected the lie about California. He let people believe it because it sounded cooler and fit the image everyone wanted to see. That was one of his first lessons in building a legend, even if it meant bending the truth. Life hit Hogan hard when he was young. His older brother Alan died from a drug overdose in 1986. Alan was only 38 years old. Losing a brother like that, especially to something as tragic as drugs, left a scar that never fully healed. It made Hogan realize how short life could be and how important it was to make something of himself. He didn't just want success for the fame or the money. He needed it. He felt like he had to prove something, not just to the world, but to himself and his family. Before he ever stepped into a wrestling ring, Hogan had a completely different dream. He wanted to be a musician. For almost 10 years, he played the bass guitar, and he was actually pretty good at it. In 1976, he helped start a band called Ruckus, and they became well known. Around the Tampa area, people liked their sound. They had energy. But as time went on, Hogan started stretching the truth about his music career, just like he did with everything else. In a 2022 interview, he even claimed that he once tried to join the Rolling Stones. He said he told someone close to Mick Jagger that he could play all their songs, and that he was ready to jump in if they ever needed a bass player. He also said he almost joined Metallica. The weird part is that his talent was real. He could actually play, but he couldn't help himself from making the story bigger and more dramatic than it really was. When Hogan decided to become a wrestler, he thought it would be safer than working construction like his father. He couldn't have been more wrong. His very first training session in 1977 ended in absolute disaster. His trainer, a brutal man named Hiro Matsuda, deliberately broke Hogan's leg on the very first day. It wasn't an accident. Matsuda did it on purpose to test whether Hogan was tough enough to handle the pain that came with wrestling. Most people who got hurt like that never came back. They quit. They gave up. But Hogan spent 10 weeks healing, and then he walked right back into that gym and demanded to keep training. That's when Matsuda finally respected him. That broken leg was the moment Hulk Hogan truly began. 1 year before that injury, when Hogan was just 23 years old, he started using anabolic steroids. Other wrestlers introduced him to the drugs and told him it was just part of the business. Hogan was already 6 feet 7 inches tall and weighed 300 pounds, but the steroids took his body to a completely different level. He admitted under oath in 1994 that he used steroids from 1976 all the way through the early 1990s. That's more than 15 years of pumping chemicals into his body. In the wrestling locker rooms back, then steroids were treated like candy. Everyone was using them. Hogan's muscles grew faster than almost anyone had ever seen before. He could train harder, heal quicker, and fight longer than his competitors. But it was also the beginning of an addiction that would follow him for the rest of his life and eventually help trigger federal investigations into wrestling in the 1990s. The name Hulk Hogan came from a strange and unexpected moment. He was appearing on a talk show in Memphis alongside Lou Ferrigno, the actor who played the Incredible Hulk on television. When they stood next to each other, the host pointed out that Hogan was even bigger and more muscular than Ferrigno. A woman named Mary Jarrett was watching the show, and she later gave him the nickname the Hulk. That one moment changed everything. Before that, he had been wrestling under different names and hadn't really found his identity. But when he became the Hulk, something clicked. The name felt right. It felt powerful. And Hogan never looked back. When Hogan joined the WWF in 1979, he wasn't playing a hero. He was actually a villain. He dressed in all black, bleached his beard, and tried to act like an arrogant fighter. But fans didn't react the way the promoters wanted. They didn't boo him because he was a great villain. They just didn't care about him at all. Even when he had big matches at Madison Square Garden, the crowd's reaction was cold and uninterested. By 1981, he left to act in the movie Rocky III. Nobody was sad to see him go. But that failure taught him something important. It taught him how to create a character that people would actually love. That movie role changed his entire life. The star of Rocky, Sylvester Stallone, had originally wanted to cast a different wrestler, but that wrestler wanted $50,000. Hogan agreed to do it for only $15,000. During filming, Hogan accidentally threw Stallone so hard that Stallone got hurt and had to get medical treatment. But instead of being angry, Stallone told people that he knew right away Hogan was going to be a superstar. Rocky III made $270 million around the world, and suddenly Hulk Hogan went from being a failed villain to someone Vince McMahon saw as the future of wrestling. Vince McMahon Jr. took over the wrestling business in 1982, and he saw something in Hogan that nobody else did. He believed Hogan could become a global brand, not just a wrestler. In 1983, McMahon started a war against the old territorial wrestling system. He offered Hogan a contract worth $750,000 per year, which was absolutely insane money back then. McMahon also bought television slots in 47 different markets all at once and began stealing the best talent from other wrestling companies. By 1985, more than 20 wrestling territories had gone completely out of business. Thousands of wrestlers lost their jobs. McMahon's plan worked, and Hogan was at the very center of it all. Everything about Hulk Hogan's character was carefully designed to match 1980s America. His 24-inch arms, his red and yellow colors, and even his theme song called Real American were all planned out. When Hogan talked about taking his vitamins, he was really talking in code about steroids, but most fans didn't realize it. The music alone cost $25,000 to produce. From 1984 to 1988, Hogan's merchandise made $1.2 billion. No wrestler in history had ever made that much money. On January 23rd, 1984, Hogan beat the Iron Sheik for the championship title, but that match wasn't a surprise at all. It had been planned months ahead of time. McMahon paid the Sheik $40,000 to lose, which was double his usual fee. They even planted 17 fake reporters in the crowd to create media buzz and make it seem like a bigger deal than it was. The whole thing was carefully orchestrated. On March 31st, 1985, Vince McMahon threw everything he had into one massive night at Madison Square Garden. That night was WrestleMania 1, and it wasn't just a wrestling show. It was his last chance to save the company. If it failed, everything would collapse. He brought in huge stars like Mr. T, Cyndi Lauper, Muhammad Ali, and others. Hulk Hogan stood at the center of it all. McMahon even made a deal with MTV to help bring in mainstream audiences. But all of this cost an absolute fortune. If people didn't show up, the whole empire would come crashing down. Luckily for McMahon, they did show up, and WrestleMania became legendary. Behind all the lights and cheers, there was a much darker world that fans never saw. During the rise of Hulkamania, wrestlers were pushed beyond human limits. They traveled non-stop, wrestled almost every single night, and used anything they could get their hands on just to keep going. One wrestler later said that drugs like Valium, steroids, cocaine, and alcohol were everywhere. Wrestlers were falling apart on the inside, but were still forced to perform like superheroes on the outside. In 1988, Federal Express records showed that a doctor named George Zahorian sent steroids directly to Hogan 8 times in just 9 months. He also sent 34 packages to WWF headquarters during that same period. Nobody cared as long as the show kept going and the money kept rolling in. One of the most painful stories from that era had nothing to do with drugs. It was about friendship. Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant were close friends for years. Andre was in pain every single day of his life. He couldn't fit in normal chairs, beds, or even showers. People whispered and laughed at him in airports. Hogan hated seeing that happen to his friend. But in 1987, for WrestleMania 3, they had to turn that friendship into a fight. Andre agreed to play the villain, and on March 29, 1987, 93,173 people were said to be in the crowd watching Hogan body slam Andre. But that number was a lie. Experts said it was really more like 78,000. What really mattered that night wasn't the crowd size. It was that two friends had to hurt each other emotionally for the sake of business. By the late 1980s, the government started looking into steroid use in wrestling. In 1991, Hogan went on a talk show and tried to deny everything, but his voice shook and everyone could see through the lies. The denial didn't help. It made things worse and scared away sponsors. Then came the movies, and they were all disasters. In 1989, Hogan starred in a movie called No Holds Barred. It cost $8 million to make, but only earned $16 million worldwide. McMahon had paid for the movie himself and later joked that he was still waiting for Hogan to pay him back. In 1991, Hogan made Suburban Commando, which cost $11 million, but made less than $7 million in the United States. Critics hated it. Even The Undertaker, who had a small role, said it was truly awful. In 1993, Hogan starred in Mr. Nanny, and it was another disaster. It made only $4.3 million. Hogan wore a tutu in one scene, and fans couldn't believe their hero had fallen so far. Hogan's personal life was collapsing too. In 1983, he married Linda Claridge, but the marriage was built on lies. Years of steroid abuse made Hogan angry and unstable. In 2009, it came out that he had cheated on Linda with their daughter Brooke's 19-year-old best friend. Linda said she loved him more than he ever loved her. She never dated again after the divorce. She said the betrayal broke her completely. Hogan's relationship with his daughter Brooke fell apart as well. In 2015, a recording leaked of Hogan using racial slurs while talking about Brooke's dating life. WWE immediately cut all ties with him. Brooke stopped talking to him. In 2023, just 2 weeks before Hogan's wedding to his third wife, Brooke tried to talk to him about his health, and he brushed her off. That was the last time they ever spoke. When Hogan died, Brooke wasn't even included in his $25 million estate. Hogan's son Nick also brought shame to the family. On August 26, 2007, Nick crashed his car while drag racing. He was only 17 years old. His friend, a 22-year-old Marine named John Graciano, suffered brain damage in the crash and now lives in a nursing home. Nick only served 5 months in jail. It was his 4th speeding ticket in 11 months. The Hogan family acted like they were the victims while John's life and dreams were destroyed forever. Linda's divorce filing in 2007 nearly wiped Hogan out financially. She got over 70% of their cash, 40% of their business interests, and $3 million in property. The legal fees cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. Hogan had to sell his home, his cars, and take any wrestling job he could find just to survive. In 2010, Hogan married Jennifer McDaniel, a 36-year-old makeup artist. He was 57. The marriage lasted 11 years, but eventually fell apart. In 2012, Hogan's sex tape with his friend's wife hit the internet, and the damage was massive. Jennifer quietly took a settlement in 2022 and walked away. In July 1994, Hulk Hogan had to testify in a major federal trial about illegal steroids. He was given immunity, which meant he wouldn't be charged as long as he told the truth. But his own words nearly got him thrown in prison. He admitted to using steroids nonstop for 13 years. Prosecutors had phone records showing he called Vince McMahon directly to arrange steroid pickups, which completely contradicted what he said under oath. They seriously considered charging Hogan with perjury, which could have sent him to federal prison for 5 years. But when McMahon was found not guilty, the case against Hogan fell apart too. Then came the Gawker scandal. In 2012, Gawker published 9 seconds of a sex tape showing Hogan with someone else's wife. The video had been secretly recorded without Hogan knowing. A billionaire named Peter Thiel secretly gave Hogan's legal team over $10 million to fight back. The trial was brutal. On March 18, 2016, the jury delivered a shocking verdict of $140 million in damages, Gawker filed for bankruptcy just 3 months later. It was one of the biggest legal wins for celebrity privacy ever seen. But the worst came on July 23, 2015, when transcripts leaked from that same sex tape. In them, Hogan was heard using the N-word several times, and even saying he was a racist. Within 24 hours, WWE reacted like Hogan didn't exist. They ended his $750,000 yearly contract, took him off their website, removed all his merchandise, and erased him from the Hall of Fame. The fallout cost him about $5 million a year in lost deals. Sponsors dropped him, fans turned away, and the stain on his image was permanent. Surprisingly, WWE brought him back in 2018, but not everyone welcomed him. Many wrestlers stayed quiet. Critics were angry, especially when Hogan showed up in Saudi Arabia at a WWE event just weeks after a journalist was murdered there. Big stars like John Cena refused to go, but Hogan not only went, he opened the whole show. When Hogan died on July 24, 2025, at 71 years old, the secrets came flooding out. His estate was worth $25 million, but his daughter Brooke had been completely removed from his will. Everything was left to his son Nick. The will had been changed 4 times between 2017 and 2023. Sources said Brooke asked to be removed because she wanted no part in her father's legacy. The most shocking discovery was those 2 massive Clearwater mansions worth over $11 million total. Hogan had once claimed he was nearly bankrupt after his 2009 divorce, but by 2016, he secretly owned 2 beachfront homes. One was bought for $3.3 million in 2012, the other for $1.6 million in 2016. But when his will came out, neither home was listed. Both were owned by trusts or limited liability companies, possibly to hide them and protect them from lawsuits or creditors. It left everyone asking how much of Hogan's life was ever really what it seemed. The man who once stood as America's hero turned out to be living a double life filled with lies, hidden money, secret illnesses, and broken relationships. The mansions were just symbols of a much bigger truth. Hulk Hogan spent his entire life building a legend. But in the end, that legend was built on secrets that he took to his grave. If this story shocked you as much as it shocked us, make sure you hit that like button right now. Share this video with anyone who grew up watching Hulk Hogan, because they need to know the truth behind the legend. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss another mind-blowing story like this one. We're bringing you the truth that nobody else will talk about. See you in the next video.